Welcome, 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 you guys. Welcome to Thursday's Talks at Heal Black Joy. And in today's conversation, we're going to be talking about the old stories that we need to give up. Hi, I'm Lola Troy, the host and curator of Heal Black Joy, the learning platform for our community to heal our Black joy with tangible and attainable programs for the mind, body, soul, relationships, and businesses. And today, my guest is Miss Aimee Worlds. She's a certified holistic health coach and RTT hypnotherapist. She is NICABM Trauma trained. She's an accountability partner, but most importantly, she is a sister with the experience to talk from a warm and loving place. She knows our journey because she's lived our journey. She is a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. So I'm going to see if I can get her in now. Hang on, we're going to get her in. Hey,
Hello.
welcome.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much for inviting me.
Oh my God, I can't wait to do this with you.
Absolutely. It's fun. This is going to be a fun night, a good night.
Absolutely. So welcome, you guys. Welcome, Miss Aimee Worlds. Everybody, welcome Miss Aimee Worlds. Yeah. So I posted 4 stories that we need to give up. The stories can profoundly shape who we are and the decisions that we make. And recognizing our stories and how they influence how we relate to others is a mark of becoming self-aware and cornerstone of mindfulness. But it can be difficult to discriminate ourselves from our story unless we're conscious of them and understanding where they come from. So there are many examples of these old stories that we need to delete, but I have 4 examples that I want you to speak to. And I see that they're really common amongst us women.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I wrote an explanation about each of them, but I want you, Miss Aimee Worlds, to speak about them and help us reframe our thought process around
Okay.
them.
Okay. Awesome.
So the first story is I will never get over blank. That could be I will never get over this relationship. I will never get over what was done to me when I was younger. I will never get over, heartache, heartbreak, trauma, whatever that thing is. Some people just get stuck there, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
this is like when people are unwilling to accept or believe something, but just because it happened doesn't mean that you won't get over it, right?
Right.
So
Right.
what is your thought process and what is your take about that?
When I hear my clients say something like, I will never get over, it's a very powerful statement because it's actually a commitment that you've made to yourself.
Ooh, wait a
It's,
minute. I need
yeah.
I need everybody to say when you say I will never get over, you're making a commitment.
Yes.
Y'all type out it in the comments.
Absolutely.
Mm,
So you're making a commitment, you've made a decision that this is something I will never get over. It's not that you can't get over it and through it, but you're deciding that's not something you want to do.
mm,
Yeah. So it's a very powerful statement. So one of the things that I usually have to ask is, oh, how does that feel for you?
mm.
Is it empowering or is it draining? A lot of times, depending on what it is, I'll get both answers. Sometimes I'll get, well, it's empowering because, I'm just going to make sure that this never happens to me again.
Right.
And the next question I usually ask is that empowerment heavy or light?
Ooh, that's good.
Right? Because if it's heavy, then that means it's triggering. That means that there's still emotional connection to what you'll never get over. It means that when it comes up again in an experience or an event or a conversation, it's going to touch something in you that takes your emotional stability off canter. So you have to really like get engaged. Is this going to be a heavy, I'll never get over it, or if it's light?
Mm,
Now, If it's light, that means that you can look at it and you can see the lesson for what it is. That means you have released it. That means that when a similar experience comes about again, that it's not something that throws you off kilter, but you're able to process what's happening without relating it to what happened before. So in that case, you know, I'll never get over it really means that I will get over it. So that's why I'm always asking, is it heavy in your body, or does it feel light? And depending on where that person is, that'll tell me if they're truly getting over it, but right now there's still some residue, or if they're not willing to get over it because they've committed to not doing so. Yeah.
Are we committed to that old story? I
Yeah.
really love this. I love this conversation because I think when people make really strong statements like I will never do something or I will never get over something, it is definitely a commitment. It's like you have a tie to it. You are
Yep.
fully invested in it and you're not trying to move past it, right?
Right. It's like you bought the t-shirt and you're going to wear it. You know, I've been to the Bahamas and you're going to know that I've been there. So it's this devotion we give to our pain. Sometimes we're devoted to letting everyone know that we're in pain in that area. And for that, I will never get over it. I'm going to wear the t-shirt and I'm going to let you know that this part of me is hurt and it's broken and it's aching. And therefore I'm going to hold on to it. And that's what makes it heavy. Yeah.
What do you think about the thought process of people that, you know, when they're committed to that pain, they're committed to the victim mentality? It goes along with that story. And if they let that story go, that basically means that nobody is paying attention to me in this story anymore because you've moved past it, right? So
Right.
a lot of people that will keep the story going just because they get the attention from people that they might not necessarily get, or the validation that they would never get if they healed from it and moved on from it.
Absolutely. And you know that you make a valid point there. It's like it becomes the identity of that person. So to release it leaves them in a place where they're not sure who they are anymore. Like, what's next? What what happens now?
Right,
And
right.
so one of the things that I do with coaching is give people the courage to begin to write a different story, to change the narrative, to change it from a horror book to a novel that is maybe self-help or sci-fi. You know, but you don't have to stick with the same storyline. But some people just lose their identity in their pain, and they don't know who they would be without that. So they become committed to that, and they don't even realize it. But it's a process of not being willing to let go, because letting go means that in some way now, perhaps I feel like I've let the person off the hook, or I'm not living in reality. You know what I mean? So we tell ourselves all these stories to hold on to darkness when the light is right there saying, come on, you can come to the other side. You can write a different story.
You can write a different story. I
Yeah,
love that light is right there.
yeah, it's right there.
Light
You got
is
to reach out and touch it.
right, right. I have an affirmation for this particular story, and I would like to hear your affirmation that you offer to your clients. If you offer an affirmation, and my affirmation for this story is, this hurts me, but I'm on a healing journey.
That's beautiful. This hurts me, but I am on a healing journey. That's
Like
gorgeous.
acknowledging the pain,
Yeah.
but I'm also acknowledging that I see the light and I'm going towards the light.
Mm. And that's what's important, you know, moving forward. If I had to use an affirmation for this particular statement, it would be, I release so that I can be restored.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we need restoration.
You need restoration. Put
Yeah.
that in the comments, you guys. Put that in the
Yeah.
comments. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I release
So that I can be
So
restored.
that I can be restored. I release so that I can be restored. I hope you guys are writing these things down, because she's going to be giving us nuggets all night. And I'm just super excited about this conversation that we're having, because there's so many women, there's so many people that are a part of our tribe that don't move from that story, So this is really powerful, you guys. I'm so glad that you guys are here joining with us in this conversation. So this next story is a really big one.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure I heard it.
Of course you have. I've said it.
I probably said it too.
I'm sure somebody on this live has said this in their head or said it out loud. I'm
Right.
not good enough.
Yeah. I knew the song. I wrote the lyrics. I produced it. I was in the video.
Pop, lock, and dropping it, right?
Yes, I think we've all said that. I'm not good enough.
Drop down in the comments, you guys. If you've said that to yourself, I need you to drop down in the comments and tell me and tell Miss Aimee if you said it. My thought process on this is, you've internalized negative thoughts. You may be convinced you're unworthy. You feel you can't measure up to people's standards or in your own standards.
Right, right. For me, and I love what you said there about standards, right? So when I hear someone say, I'm not good enough, 9 times out of 10, it's code for I'm not as good as, because they're comparing themselves.
Right. You're not measuring up to someone else's thing, whatever that is.
Yeah, and comparison is the thief to joy, right? So if I'm comparing myself to what someone told me I should be, or what I think I should be based on someone else's standards, or I'm looking at all the things that I may be weak in and I wish I was stronger in, and I'm comparing it to someone else who has those strengths, then it's just comparison that takes place that causes us to say, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. And so one of the things about comparison is I find people who do that a lot have an issue with self-awareness. They're really not tuned into how great and how unique they are as an individual.
Okay.
So if I have to always look outside of myself to get a sense of where I should be, who I should be, and what I should be aiming for, then I'm always going to come back depleted. Yeah, I'm always going to come back depleted, because there's always someone that is doing more, has more, went further. And so there's you create a race that you will never win. However, when you are very clear on who you are and your self-awareness, you're looking at yourself and you become your own gauge of progress. You say to yourself, for who I am, what is that? And then you discover those things in yourself that maybe you look over, things that you don't pay enough attention to, things that people see and you downgrade. You say, oh, they just said that. But you really need to take a really good look at it, because a lot of times it's greatness right there, but you're not really connected with that within yourself. So it's a self-awareness comment. You need to be more self-aware.
So I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Does that stem from the disconnection of self-awareness? Does that stem from the way you were raised? Not necessarily being affirmed by your parents or those people that, are the deciding tribe of when you come into this world and how you go out into the world and how you see the world. Those are the people that you trust the most, right? So if they're not affirming you in the home, or they're not affirming you in your, comfortable, loving space, then you can go out into the world and just be totally disconnected from who you are.
That's it.
Is that where that's coming from? Like what connect the dots for me?
It can be, most of the times our childhoods are the link to a lot of things. We have emotional programming that starts from the time we come out of our mother's womb. And based on that relationship, before we can even speak, we're gathering information. And when those needs are not met, or when someone comes to us and they take an act that totally diminishes us, we process that information and we may forget that particular event, but our subconscious stores it in a file.
Mm,
And we keep files from years and years and years that we're not even like conscious of, but subconsciously it's there. So
mhm.
you're absolutely right. Our childhoods have a lot to do with it. What we decide to influence us, like we have a choice of influence. And so our influences are very powerful, whether it be people, whether it be social media, whether it be the television. Our influences shape how we see ourselves. So
Right.
then that's something that when I'm coaching someone, I have to ask them, where is your greatest influence coming from? A lot of times people will give me a surface answer. My mom influenced me. My dad influenced me. Okay, that's really surface, right?
Mhm.
Because mom and dad had that edge for a certain amount of time. And then your influence expanded. It went beyond the parental gate. And when that did, who was that influenced you? What were the things that influenced you? And how did you begin to see yourself? How did your image develop within your own gaze? And so it's really about self-awareness, seeing yourself for where your vision was clear and where it went distorted. There's certain times when it goes distorted, like for instance, adolescence is a
Mhm.
primary distortion of vision, right? Because let's say in that middle school age, right in that gap there, we become more influenced by our peers. We're more
Right.
sensitive to the world around us. Comments that are made, things that people do to us, really we internalize it, and then our influence shifts from just mom and dad to the world
Right.
around us. So it's a very deep conversation. I love deep diving with my clients, but it depends on where you're extracting those influences.
So let me ask you a question. I know you probably have a great age range of clients. Um, I'm really concerned about this age that my daughter's in.
Okay.
Not necessarily her in particular, but just the collective.
Mhm.
Um, we didn't come from an age of social media,
Oh,
right?
thank
But
God.
our children come into this world of technology that is such a huge influence. And what I notice and what I'm seeing and reading about, you're having more suicide rates now. You're having more girls that are just letting their morals and standards just go by the wayside because they're basing everything off of what they see. They think that they can't have a legitimate relationship with a guy because they're not shaking, and dancing in a video,
Mhm.
or you know strippers and people that that do things that they get money for.
Right.
Totally different from when we were in high school and when we were in college. Like,
That's true.
are now being praised for the work that they do. And I'm not knocking them because people have their journey and they've got to go through what they go through.
Right.
But what are the examples that that technology, social media is playing upon the social media age range of women?
Oh, that's a really deep question. I don't even know if we have enough time. I will say that you bring up some valid points, and I'm raising three daughters myself. My oldest daughter is in her mid-20s. I have another daughter, 23, another daughter, 16. And sometimes I'm just floored with what they see and
Right.
what they're clicking on.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing with social media is like what you click on is what will continue to spiral in your feed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're clicking on a bunch of mess, then the algorithms will continue to feed it to you.
Right.
And that's where the addiction starts. So you really want to pay attention to what they're clicking on, especially my 16-year-old. And I'm like, what are you clicking on? Right now it's still pretty innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my daughters that are in their 20s, not so much. And so you have to really pay attention to what they're noticing and have those hard conversations. The truth is, in America, the top paying career for women is the sex industry.
Mm,
That's a top paying career. Like, you're going to make money. If money is your center, if money is your goal, the top paying careers for women in America has to do with sex, the selling of sex. That's what it is. So, when we look at what we see in social media and sex sells,
mm-hmm.
it's really about getting into the minds of our daughters and having those hard conversations about really what sex and sensuality is, and understanding the difference between marketing and reality.
Right.
Because marketing is a beast. Marketing will have you thinking that you're supposed to have the perfect breasts, the perfect waist, and the best booty ever. That's great marketing. And they'll have you looking at yourself and seeing all the things that you wish you had. I think my daughter, the one that's 23, she just graduated out of college, and she was telling me how so many girls are having BBLs at such a young age, like really young, before they've had children, before they've even had issues with their body. They're going in, having these major surgeries, trying to alter their natural state to fit this visual that they see on social media. So it's a very powerful beast, but it's the hard conversations as moms, me and you, other women who may be listening today. It's having the conversations without judgment. It's really getting into the minds of our daughters and saying, what do you think sexuality is? What makes a woman beautiful? What is sensuality? Do you feel sensual? What do you deem to be sexy, and why? And if it's good enough for you, would you be comfortable if I did it? And why wouldn't you be comfortable if I did it? You know what I mean? So
Right.
could you imagine your grandmother doing these things? Why wouldn't it be okay for her? But it would be okay for you. Why? Oh, because of age. But what happens when you get older? And how do you explain this to your children? So it's having those conversations and asking questions is something that I really do try to get my clients to understand, the power of asking questions to entice critical thinking in young people.
I
It's not about all the statements, it's about the questions.
I love this. You guys, I love this conversation because there have been so many times that I'm kind of old school, I'm a 70s baby, 70s, and grew up in,
Me too.
right? So our parents didn't ask us any questions. It was
No.
this or that. You know what I mean? It was like, either you're going to go to college, or you're going to go to the military, or you're going to get a job, right? There was no in between. There was no, where you can make millions of dollars on social media. So they have all of this influence. And I'm so glad that you're talking about asking questions, because what it does is it makes them look at themselves in the mirror, not only look at themselves, but also see the world in a different, from a different vantage point. Because if you're asking them the question based off of how they see it, not necessarily how you see them in the world, or how somebody else sees them in the world, and how they should see themselves in the world, I think it will come with a great dialogue with your child.
Right, right.
I'm
That's
not
how,
so good at not face. I
it's
work on
it's
my,
hard.
it is very, very, very hard. So if you're like a 70s baby or an 80s baby, and you have children that are being influenced by social media, you got to keep a poker face. You
You
have to.
do. You do.
You have to.
And you know what? Here's where self-awareness comes in. At least for me, this is how I think about it. Because my girls are bodacious. They are, big booty Judy and brick
Yeah.
houses. And I'm thinking, good God, you got the best of the genetics pool, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, I say to myself, but God, who would I be at this time? Right?
Mm.
Like, you have to have the self-awareness. Like, if I had that lack of perception, the youthfulness, what kind of choices would I be making in this world? And it allows you to take the criticism and maybe the judgment out of the questions. And the questions just, they're just blanket questions. And most important, the power of asking our teenagers and young adults questions is even when they're giving you BS answers, they get to hear the BS coming out of their mouth.
Mm.
Stay silent and let them hear their own BS. Like, you know, let
Yeah.
them talk. You
Yeah.
heard that. You heard what you just said, and you know that made no sense.
No sense whatsoever. No sense whatsoever. I love it. I love it. You guys, isn't this conversation great? This is a real necessary conversation to have.
It was a great combo.
I'm so glad we're having it. So my affirmation for this story is I am worthy of all good things that are happening in my life.
I'm worthy of all the good things happening in my life.
What would your affirmation be?
So the statement is, let me just make sure. The statement is, I'm not good enough. You know, when you think about self-awareness, that was the statement, right?
Wrong affirmation. That's not the affirmation for that story.
Okay.
For I'm not good enough is I am good enough, and I'm working through the negative thoughts of myself.
Okay. And I like the idea that you're progressing. I'm working through, because you got to go through them. And you got to learn how to manage them. You have to learn how to compartmentalize those thoughts. I do a lot of work with clients on managing your thoughts, because a negative thought only lasts for about 90 seconds. The reason why it continues is because we have like kind of taught ourselves by habit to ruminate and keep it. We loop the thought. But negative thoughts only last 90 seconds.
Wow. Yeah. That is a nugget. I did not know that.
Yeah, we loop them. We hold, we grasp them, and then we don't let them go. And we loop, and then it's meditating on the negative. We do meditation all the time. But a lot of times we've been programmed, emotionally programmed, to meditate on what is negative. So teaching people how to redirect their meditation and how to release the negative thoughts takes time, but it can be done.
That's good.
Yeah.
How can you give us a suggestion on how we could start focusing on the positive instead of ruminating on the negative? Like, what's like a quick exercise that you could tell us about that could help us reframe or direct us in a, put us in another place where we're not thinking about the negative?
Yeah, I love this question because I just had this conversation this afternoon with a client who's in a very negative place for valid reasons. I likened it to looking on one side and seeing the world through a very black and white gray lens. So everything in the world is almost zombie-like. It's like being in hell. So you're looking at no color, just blanket ash darkness. And so that's negative thoughts. Negative thoughts are just negative, and they build on each other, right? So once you take on a negative thought, you can create like this hypothetical scenarios where we branch out in these Hollywood like creations in our mind. And it can go from, my child didn't get off the school bus and it's 3:30, what's taking it so long, to literally seeing a school bus flip over 3 times and seeing yourself running out there. I mean, people will run with it, and it becomes like a movie in the mind of someone within a second. It doesn't take long. So positive thoughts is making a decision to say, why do I assume the worst? What if? It's deciding to think differently. It's deciding to look on the other side where the world has color, where there's sun, where there's air, where there's life. And in that world, you can see positivity. You're inhaling positivity. You feel positivity. So it's where you're going to redirect your gaze. And a lot of times our gaze is on the negative. It's on the darkness of us versus choosing to look the other way.
Right.
And so sometimes we have to use something to catapult that. In my client scenario, just this afternoon, it was her children, because she could see the light in her children, the love. They gave her hope. So I
Mm,
said, in this situation, I need you to gaze at what gives you like that hope, that love,
right.
that tenacity to keep going. And that is your positive scope until we can help you to develop better. So sometimes it has to be, we have to use an alternate method of something outside of us. But initially, like once we do the work, you'll get to a place where you'll see that within yourself. You won't have to look externally, it'll be within. But there's training involved. You didn't get there overnight. You don't fix it overnight.
Right. That's good. That's good stuff. So I have another story for you.
Okay, I'm
Um,
ready. These stories are interesting.
this is going to work. That's a story that people tell you like, oh, that's not going to work.
Mm.
Or you'll tell yourself, I don't think this is going to work. Like you just are going with that self-doubt. Like if you struggle with your abilities and have negative people telling you that you can't do it, you struggle with self-doubt. It's rooted in self-doubt. It's just like you could come up with the greatest idea and then negative Nancy's like, well, I don't see how that's going to work. Or, people that just don't have a vision of what you're trying to do. If the creator has given you a vision, right? And it drops and it downloads into your spirit. If your first instinct is, oh, this is not going to work, that's rooted in self-doubt to me.
It is. It is. And most importantly, when you say that, you have made a declaration, it's not going to work. So it comes back to the question, tell me why it's not going to work. Because we have this thing as human beings, we have self-fulfilling prophecy. So as a man thinketh, so is he. So if you say it's not going to work, I believe you.
Right.
And if you say it is going to work, I believe you.
I believe. Right. Right.
So this is where you tap into where your belief center is. What do you truly believe? And sometimes we believe a lie, and sometimes we believe the truth. When I'm working with someone and they say it's not going to work, I say, tell me why it's not going to, because that gives me really like a grand amount of insight on how they're thinking and why they've dismissed themselves.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They've critiqued themselves, they've judged the matter, and they've made that declaration, and they've dismissed their own effort.
How do you silence that noise in your head, or even those that insert their fears upon? How do you silence that? Like, what is a way to silence out that fear talking to you?
You know, first of all, you have to recognize the voices. Sometimes the voices sound like our parents.
Mm.
Other times we make the voices grandiose and they sound like God, and you say, oh, God said,
Right.
People blame God all the time.
Right.
And other times we really have to learn when the voice is true, when it's our heart center and it's an honest voice. And a lot of times we haven't been trained on how to do just that, because that's done in silence. That's done when you can center in and kind of divide the fear from the love.
Right.
Love has a voice, but a lot of times it's being drowned out by fear. Fear speaks much louder.
Yes, it does.
Fear is like the music, the score music in a horror film, where you're getting anxiety and there's nothing happening on the movie, but somehow you get intense because the music's playing and you think, God dang, that's some serious music there.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's fear. That's how fear operates in the mind. But, to kind of transition that to a place of love and the voice of love is very, sometimes soft. It's a whisper, because it's not trying to scare you.
Right.
It's trying to comfort you.
Oh,
it's trying to protect you. It's
yeah.
trying to keep you safe.
Yes.
And it's not based on fear. It's based on, love. It's based on a center of who you are and your divineness. So a lot of times we can't hear that when we're distracted by the chaos of people and things outside of ourselves, or we're more in tune with the fear voices from people who have told us lies. Sometimes it's the negativity that we've heard ever since we were children.
Right.
It's the judge, that says you can't. It's not for you.
Mm-hmm.
We have to really train ourselves to get past those voices, because that's all based in fear, and to tune into love within ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. My affirmation for this story is I am the best me. I am the best at being me. Anything I set myself up to do, it will work out. I believe in myself and my abilities.
I love that.
What is your affirmation for drowning out that noise or those people that, are telling you that this can't be done or that won't work?
Ultimately, my affirmation would be I am.
I am.
That's it.
I am.
That
That's
encompasses all. It's really recognizing the God within yourself. It's I amness,
right.
right? So it's as simple, it's all encompassing, and it says that I'm enough. It says that I can do all things. It says that, my worth and my self-esteem is relevant at all times, and I won't dismiss the goodness, and I will honor myself in that process. It's I amness,
Mm-hmm.
So I would just keep that simple, a simple affirmation of I am.
I am.
I
I
am.
hope you guys are writing these down and creating your own affirmations. This conversation has been such a joy that we've done a little deep dive. I wish we had time to do more. We'll have to come back and do this again.
I
We're
would love to.
absolutely. Tell us what you're working on. Give us your social media information so people can follow you if they need a coach. Are you open for coaching right now, new clients? And just tell me what you're working on.
I'm working on a few things, but I'll just name two or three just to give the listeners a clue somewhat. So I can always be found on IG. My handle is _Black Therapy. So if you have an interest in being coached, you can always reach out to me through my DM, and I communicate. If I'm not in a session, I can communicate right away. But I have a few things going on. I am with I have a self-mastery support group that I conduct every week. And I'm actually about to spin off to my second group. So the first group, I got them through it, and they're about to graduate. We're like almost on the cusp of them completing their learning. So I'm about to take on a second group for self-mastery. And I also have like a book club that a lot of women has expressed interest in, but where we take books and we discuss them, whether they be self-help or drama, but
Right.
it becomes book therapy because we're all in a community and we're talking through what our perspective is and what we learned and how it impacts us personally. And it becomes really like a close-knit, intimate conversation. And it has done wonders for the people that I've worked with so far. There's always something that I'm working through. I have some affirmation cards that I'm working on, which
Awesome.
I'll be producing, because I think some people really could use a little bit more depth in their affirmations just day to day.
Right.
And I love kind of walking through that, and just some little projects that I'm working on. So if you follow me on _Black Therapy, eventually my marketing, I will put it out there. And then if you're interested, you can always just tune in and get involved.
And whatever you have, just let me know.
Yeah.
Post it on our page so that people can, be connected to you and purchase the things that the content that you're working on. I think you are an awesome thought leader. I think you
Thank
are
you.
amazing for our tribe. You speak to our tribe. I said at the beginning, you come from a place of warmth, you come from a place of depth, and you're a sister. You know what I mean? Like, you know, or you know our story because you've
I
lived,
do.
right?
Living it. I just had two more thoughts too that I thought maybe, I don't know how many of your listeners are on Clubhouse, use the Clubhouse app, but I have two rooms in particular that I participate in that I thought you may be interested in that too because it's free.
Okay.
So there's a room that is going to happen on Thursday evenings at about either 7 or 8 o'clock, but it's
Okay.
specific to financial trauma. People who have endured all kinds of financial trauma, whether it's deep losses or they're stagnant in their finances due to trauma, due to things happening to them, maybe people stealing from them, maybe going through foreclosure, maybe losing their job, whatever that is, but
Right.
it is traumatic. So
Yes.
I'm working through the emotional piece of it, and then I have my co-mod who is a financial strategist who's going to work with just giving some really good tools so that people can get back on their feet. So I think that's going to be a really cool room. And then the second room that I participate in every single week is an emotional wellness room. And that takes place on Mondays at about 1:45 in the afternoon Eastern time.
Mhm.
But we talk about how to use different techniques and tools to stay emotionally well, like to keep that balance. So we're not having heart attacks, strokes, and nervous breakdowns. We're
Right.
thriving. And so I think that's really important because there's a lot of stress out there this
It,
day and time. And
yes.
I don't want to see people on pills that they don't have to take them. I'd
Right.
rather see people come together as a community, a village, and
Yes.
support one another. So I would really love if you do have the Clubhouse app, find me and let participate in those rooms. I think it'd be really beneficial.
Send that information to me and I will put
Absolutely.
it on our page so that people can definitely not only find you, but also find the things that you are a part of and what you're working on. You guys, we've got to give it up for Miss Aimee Worlds tonight. This has been a wonderful conversation that I've had here with her at Heal Black Joy. My call to action for you guys is, if you are liking our content, you know, we specialize in healing our Black joy. I felt like there was a real, very big hole in the world. I wanted to contribute to the positiveness or the positivity of Blacks, not the negative imagery that we're seeing each and every day. I think we've been inundated with negative imagery of ourselves, and we've lost our joy. I know a lot of thought leaders that speak about manifestation and coming into certain things, but there's still a missing piece of that puzzle when it comes to us, because what might work for our white counterpart is not necessarily going to work for us because of the things that we have to face each and every day. So click the link in our bio to sign up for all Heal Black Joy content. If you want to be first to know about webinars, our lives, our classes, ebooks, and more, also click like and share on the page. You know, go follow us here on Instagram as well as Facebook as well as TikTok to get resources on how to heal your Black joy. Thank you guys for joining. Aimee, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for the conversation. It's
Thank
been
you.
such a joy to talk to you tonight.
Same here, Lola. You're doing amazing work, and I can't wait to see where you go with this because, I mean, I felt like I was being interviewed by Oprah. You're excellent.
I said I put on my red glasses tonight because I was gonna do
You're awesome.
Raphael, right?
Thank you.
Thank you guys. It has been wonderful. Let's heal our Black joy. Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.